Right now, an inspiring true story to kick off Black History Month. We bring you to an event at Mystery to Me bookstore. Also, how many votes Wisconsin's Ben Weekler received as he eyed the top spot for the Democratic National Committee chair. Plus, with the state Supreme Court election coming up, we check in on canvassing efforts for candidates Brad Schimmel and Susan Crawford. Good evening and thank you for joining us for News 3 Now at 6. I'm Jalen Banks. Today marks the first day of Black History Month in 2025. A local author and illustrator celebrating with a book about late civil rights activist John Lewis. The pair held a book signing at Mystery to Me bookstore on Monroe Street in Madison. Our Tanisha Shaw has more.
And so to be able to do this and do it about John Lewis is just an honor and just a really cool experience.
Growing up in Wisconsin, Jerry Jordan didn't see a lot of people that looked like him in books.
Yeah, I didn't learn a lot about Black history or any officials outside of course, like Dr. King or Malcolm X. I didn't really learn about anybody growing up. My knowledge came just from being an adult, reading, watching the news.
Jordan is the illustrator of Unstoppable John. He worked alongside author Pat Zelo Miller to create the book.
I got inspired to write this book after I saw John Lewis give his acceptance speech after winning the National Book Award.
Unstoppable John highlights the importance of public libraries during a time when everybody couldn't browse these shelves and rent a book for free.
I read every book that John Lewis had written. I read his collection of essays. I looked at newspapers from Alabama when he was growing up and a lot of pictures from the 50s online. He talked about wanting to get a library card when he was a teenager and being told no. And that inspired me to do a lot more research, and I realized what an impact books and libraries had had on his life.
The Wisconsin duo says this book is another example of why understanding history is important.
I think today kids would think, well, anybody can go get a library card because in their short experience, anybody can. And I think it's important for them to know that it wasn't always that way. John Lewis was noteworthy because he was so committed to the idea of peaceful protest. I mean, people treated him horribly much of the time, and he just basically stood there and took it. And it was a conscious decision not to meet their anger with anger of his own. He decided that no matter what people did, he was not going to fight back. He was just going to ask for what he thought was right, and I really respect that.
Reporting in Madison, Tanisha Shaw, News 3 Now.
Tanisha, thank you. The book Unstoppable John is on sale now at local bookstores and online. Dane County Executive Melissa Agard Saturday honored the start of Black History Month by celebrating Black individuals who have helped shape the community in Dane County. In a statement, Agard says the Black community in Dane County plays an essential role in shaping our shared history, culture, and progress. Throughout Black History Month, County Executive Agard is encouraging residents to participate in local events, engage in meaningful conversations, and take accountable steps towards a more inclusive future. Now, for more information on some of these upcoming local Black History Month events, you can find them on our website at channel3000.com. Now, let's go ahead and get a look at your first warn forecast with meteorologist Blaze Keller. Blaze, what should we expect for this week?
It is going to be a bit cooler out there tonight, but we are anticipating maybe a more mild end to the weekend. Sunday, of course, being Groundhog Day. So we got a lot kind of riding on tomorrow, but let's focus on tonight because we do have a light wintry mix moving on in. Temperatures are in the upper 20s to low 30s. Winds are out of the southeast, so helping move in that next system. On the satellite and radar 3000, we're not seeing much in the way of really any meaningful snow shower activity at this point. Maybe a few light flurries across southwestern parts of our forecast area towards Grant, Lafayette counties. If we step future track through the rest of your evening into the midnight hour, that's when I think a lot of us are going to see that snow begin to fall, and some of that may start off as a rain-snow mix as temperatures continue to cool on down. But this really wraps up as we go into those early morning hours on Sunday. However, we need that cloud cover to really move on out of here as we go into your Sunday morning if we want to get into those low 50s. In terms of snow totals over the next 48 hours, many of us are probably only going to pick up about 1/4 of an inch at best. If we're lucky, 1/2 an inch. Now, there is a little bit of freezing drizzle possibility tonight as well, but totals are going to remain within a few hundredths of an inch, so not really impactful, but maybe just some slick spots there on the roadways. We're looking at temperatures to hang out in the upper 20s to low 30s tonight underneath those cloudy conditions with that rain-snow mix beginning. As I mentioned, Groundhog Day is tomorrow, so we'll take a look at what the forecast calls for when Jimmy the Groundhog could make his prediction, and then what lies ahead for your upcoming work week, that first full week of February. That's coming up later on in this half hour.
All right, sounds good, Blaze. We'll see you then. And speaking of those slick spots, the city of Madison is asking drivers to remain cautious when traveling Saturday night as overnight snow is expected. The conditions are expected to last through Sunday morning. When plows are called in response to the snow, crews will be focusing on salt routes. There are 782 miles of traffic lanes that make up the main roads throughout the city. The snow is expected to produce around ½ an inch of snow, or maybe less. As Blaze had just mentioned, residents are asked when traveling to be prepared for snowy, wet, and slippery conditions. Officials are asking residents to give themselves extra time so they can travel to their destination safely. On the national stage, the Democratic Party held their election for National Party Chair earlier today. Among the candidates running for the job, Wisconsin State Party Chair Ben Winkler. He ended up losing to Minnesota State Party Chair Ken Martin, but that means Winkler remains in Wisconsin to lead the party. We spoke with a local county official about the impact this will have.
He has done an incredible job. I think Wisconsin Democrats are behind him 100%. I think it speaks a lot that every Wisconsin DNC member voted for him. But I'm actually a little shocked and surprised that the DNC did not take this opportunity to put Ben in charge. Ben is quantifiably, excellent at what he does.
In a statement, Winkler thanked those who worked on his campaign and urged them to look ahead. He says, quote, Wisconsin's April 1st state Supreme Court race will determine the future of abortion access, union rights, freedom, and democracy in the Badger State. Let's take a breath and get back to work. And with just 2 months until the state Supreme Court election, both Democrats and Republicans are gearing up for the contest between conservative Brad Schimmel and liberal Susan Crawford. Our Maddie Heimsch has a look at this weekend's canvassing efforts on the parties.
Does feel like just yesterday that we were out knocking on doors and canvassing.
Wisconsin's 2025 Supreme Court race has the potential to echo the highly partisan and highly competitive energy that filled the state during the 2024 campaign season.
This is going to be a tough, close race.
While the election is officially nonpartisan, Dane County Circuit Court Judge Susan Crawford is endorsed by Wisconsin's Democratic Party, and Waukesha County Circuit Judge Brad Schimmel is the former Republican Attorney General.
It's a very stark choice,
putting the battleground state back in the national spotlight.
This race is the most important race happening anywhere in the country in 2025.
And encouraging volunteers to get to work. Organizing door-knocking efforts in support of Crawford on Saturday, Julie McGivern says she wants to help energize the voter base.
A lot of people don't understand what the Supreme Court is about and how it affects their day-to-day lives. And we know that this Supreme Court race is going to have a huge impact on the lives of people in Wisconsin.
McGivern's efforts are part of the state Democrats' Weekend of Action canvasses. They come just days after Schimmel finished visiting each of Wisconsin's 72 counties.
There is so much at stake right now.
Reporting in Madison, I'm Maddie Heimsch, News 3 Now.
Maddie, thank you. If Crawford wins on April 1st, the state's high court will hold a liberal majority for at least 3 more years. If Schimmel wins, the court will return to a conservative lean. And coming up next on News 3 Now at 10, President Trump continues to shake up departments in Washington. Find out what is next for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And half a dozen people are dead in a plane crash in Pennsylvania. What we know so far.
You're watching News 3 Now at 6.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump has fired the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. A source says Rohit Chopra was notified of his termination in an email from the White House Saturday. He later announced his departure in a social media post, which included a letter addressed to Trump. In the letter, Chopra wrote that he was confirming that his term has concluded. Chopra was appointed by President Joe Biden in 2021, and his term was supposed to run through late next year. However, a 2020 Supreme Court ruling gave the president the power to fire the director without cause. During his time at the independent agency, Chopra spearheaded controversial regulation targeting so-called junk fees. First responders looked through burned cars, damaged homes, and charred debris Saturday in Philadelphia, and they are trying to determine what made an air ambulance jet plane en route to Missouri explode as it crashed on a busy city street. All 6 people on board were killed, including a young girl, and at least 1 person on the ground died. CBS's Madison Wright has the latest from Philadelphia.
The small plane carrying 6 people, including a child who had undergone treatment at a Philadelphia hospital, crashed shortly after takeoff Friday night.
I know that the good people of Northeast Philadelphia this morning, as daybreak came, walked out from their homes, came down from their stoops, and saw carnage in their communities, saw fuselage, saw destruction, and saw things that no one should ever have to experience in their neighborhoods.
Witnesses described a huge fireball amid the tragedy in the densely populated Philadelphia neighborhood.
When I heard a loud bang, my wife called me out she said, "Babe, come outside. There's something happened." A flash out of nowhere came up.
It's very scary, especially since the other day there was another plane crash with a helicopter. 2 days in a row, basically. It's just unheard of.
Authorities are working desperately to find any other casualties on the ground as they go house to house to inspect the dwellings in the area.
This is an active investigation scene. The debris is scattered. It is very dangerous.
Of the 6 people on board the Learjet, 1 was a girl who had just completed treatment at Shriners Children's Hospital. Officials say her mother and crew members were also on board. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said all the victims were from Mexico. Madeleine Wright, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Authorities say 19 people were injured and warn that casualty numbers on the ground could rise. The Pentagon's intelligence arm has issued a memo pausing any activities related to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Juneteenth, Black History Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, and Holocaust Remembrance Day, among other, quote, special observances, according to a defense official who confirmed the authenticity of the memo. The memo listed 11 such observances that employees are no longer supposed to recognize with office activities or events. The move by the Defense Intelligence Agency is meant to comply with President Trump's executive actions to end federal programs related to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the military. Coming up after the break, Blaze returns with a complete look at your First One forecast. Let's get a look at your First One forecast with meteorologist Blaze Keller. Blaze.
We talked about the rain-snow mix that moves in overnight, but we are not done when it comes to rain-snow mixes or even just snow chances rather. Over the next 7 to 10 days, we're seeing a little bit more activity return to parts of not only the Midwest, but Wisconsin, which is some good news because January, we really did not see much in the way of rain or snow. So we need to rebuild that missing snowpack, and that may begin here as we go into February. Again, that first chance for a rain-snow mix comes overnight as a quick-moving low-pressure system moves on through parts of the Midwest and will exit by Sunday. And then on the edge of a high pressure system, we see a little bit of snow kind of move through mainly central and northern parts of Wisconsin, but we could see some flurries here across southern Wisconsin as we go into the start of your next work week before our next high pressure system moves in. But when it comes to snow totals, this is also accounting for tonight. A lot more of that snow is falling even north of Camp Douglas, right along Black River Falls and northward. So this Monday chance is not really going to be impacting us a whole lot, but we still see another chance as we go into Wednesday of next week. This system continues to show up on our long-range models, but there's obviously a stark difference. You're seeing a lot more precipitation, snow mix, as well as rain with the European model as compared to the GFS at the same time Wednesday afternoon. The GFS is implying that that high pressure system that moves in later Monday pushes a lot of that moisture to our south, whereas the Euro kind of has that low pressure system at least fighting part of that high and moving through the Midwest. So the European is going to bring us more snow than, say, the GFS. We'll still keep an eye on it. That high pressure system is going to be strong. So if it does push a lot of that moisture to our south, we'll likely only get a little bit of not only rain, but snow Wednesday before we go into the second half of next week. Tomorrow, we're going to possibly break back into those mid to upper 40s, if not the low 50s. But my only concern is there's a lot of cloud cover here as we go into the afternoon hours on Future Track Sunday. To get into those upper 40s and low 50s, especially at this time of year, I would really want to see nothing in across parts of southern Wisconsin. Even with these southwesterly winds, because we're still in the heart of winter, our sun angle is not where it would be in the summer. So we can't really count on late day heating to boost our temperatures up. We have to start that heating earlier during the winter months. So if we look at all of our models and look at their temperatures that they're expecting tomorrow, the consistency is that the 50s are likely going to be really limited to parts of Grant, Crawford, Iowa, as well as Lafayette counties, maybe into parts of Sauk County, but a lot of us are probably going to be hanging out in those mid to upper 40s. If we clear that cloud cover sooner rather than later, we could certainly get into those low 50s. And this will be our last mild day regardless over the next 7 to 10. But if we see that cloud cover stick around through at least noon, I would bet on more or less hanging out in those mid to upper 40s. Groundhog Day is tomorrow. We have a whole write-up about not only Puxatawny Phil, but also Jimmy the Groundhog. Jimmy has a much higher accuracy rate than Puxatawny, but we explain why his accuracy rate is a little bit higher and what we're expecting as Jimmy makes his prediction tomorrow. And then we say goodbye to the 40s and maybe the 50s for the foreseeable future. We're back into the 30s and 20s beyond Sunday with another chance for maybe a bigger system by next weekend.
So why do you think when it comes to prediction making, people use
Why
Puxatawny?
rodent is bad? Oh.
why do people use Puxatawny's like that standard bearer and not Jimmy?
And not what?
And not, what'd you say, Jimmy?
Oh,
the
Jimmy?
Groundhog?
Because Puxatawny has been doing it for 100 and something years.
I think it's just the name.
Jimmy,
It sounds cooler.
he's been doing it for a while, but the accuracy rate that he has is only within the last 20 years, and it's about 60%. So we'll just have to see what he says tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to that. Still ahead, after winning 7 in a row, Wisconsin men's basketball has lost 2 of its last 3. See if they could bounce back against the Northwestern Wildcats next in sports.
When it comes to scoring the rock, the Wisconsin men have had one of their most prolific seasons to date so far this year. But to start their game today against Northwestern, the Badgers couldn't hit water if they fell off of a boat. 12 minutes in and Wisconsin trailing 12-7 had more turnovers than baskets made at this point. But then John Tonje turned it on, hits the 3, which led the 6th-year senior to go on a heater. He scored 16 straight for Wisconsin and gave the Badgers a chance in the second half, where they trailed by as many as 9, which is where Carter Gilmore comes into play. The senior from Arrowhead had the half of his life, puts back Tonje's miss and gives Wisconsin a 54-52 lead, but he wasn't done. No. Gilly was going silly. He hits his 3rd 3 of that second half of the contest from Steph Curry range, had a career high 15 points all in the second half, and he was the difference maker in this one. The Badgers, they outscored the Wildcats 50-38 in the second half and get back to their winning ways with a final score of 75-69. And there is that final score. Let's move on to Wisconsin women's hockey, who played a great game today against Duluth. And when it comes to these Badgers, the expectation is perfection. For their standards, though, this last week has been rough. They tied St. Cloud State last weekend and needed overtime to skate past Duluth last night. The women are 25-1-2 on the season and expect to win every game and do it in a landslide. It was more of the same today, though. They were scoreless through 2 periods, but 8 minutes into the third, they finally broke through. Layla Edwards lights the lamp. Her team leading 26th goal of the year. Worth another look. But there was more game to be played, and the Badgers, they have no interest in losing or even tying. A few minutes later, they smell blood. Sarah Wozniewicz whips one past the goaltender, and Wisconsin comes back to win it by a final score of 2-1. Staying on the ice and also in Minnesota, because down south from Duluth in the Twin Cities, we've got a good old-fashioned border battle on our hands. The Badger men desperately could use this win against Minnesota. Right now, through 2 periods, we are scoreless. And speaking of men's hockey, the place to be on Monday night is Pooley's Sports Bar. Badger defenseman Ben Dexheimer will be there, and so will our Zach Hanley. Join us for the live taping of this week's Wisconsin Huddle. Taping starts at 6:45 at Pooley's. You know who the guest for the Wisconsin Huddle was last week, right? Carter Gilmore. Where were you guys for the Carter Gilmore game? Today was unbelievable.
I was actually off last Monday.
That's okay.
But this Monday, I think we should go. I mean, you and I, we don't live too far from there, but yeah, I love going to those tapings with Zach. He does a great job.
And how about Carter Gilmore today? He was fantastic. 15 in the second half. That's a guy you didn't expect to step up, and they needed every point from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in the winning column. A quick check before we head on that way.
Yeah, a light rain snow mix tonight, and then we slowly clear out on Groundhog Day.
Sounds good. We'll see you back here at 10 o'clock.